Hey guys, nice to be here again for you. Now, if you thought Factorio, Space Age was just more of the same old good Factorio we all love, think again. This one's a whole different beast. As you can see, it's all about spaceships now. They've basically swapped out railways for starships, so it's quite a complex setup with loads of planets and endless possibilities. But your main nemesis? Those pesky asteroids zooming between planets. There's a whole lore behind it, including shattered worlds. But honestly, it's a blast, building all these ships. Right now, I've got one of my ships en route to grab an asteroid you need for the final science pack in the game. You can only get it from harvesting asteroids with your starships. It's quite interesting, really. Before, you could get by with just lasers and that was fine. Now, you've got to build an entire line of defense to handle all sorts of threats, from the big ones to the small ones. It's actually quite a fun challenge. I've designed about 6 or 7 prototypes of these ships, and it's a proper complex structure since you've got to source everything from space. As you can see, I've got my 3 types of ammo here, along with 3 types of weaponry. The main one is the railgun turret, which is a new addition. Then there's the sniper gun, which is pretty much your go-to. And now we've got the rocket turret as well, which you used to only have as a handheld option, but now you can build and deploy it. I even tried adding the old laser turret, and it works fine near routes close to the sun. But if you venture deep into space, you'll encounter beasts that a simple laser turret just can't handle. With all these new elements, the gameplay really keeps you on your toes. Managing resources from asteroids and building these intricate ships is both challenging and rewarding. It's a natural extension of everything that made classic Factorio so good, just taken to a whole new scale. Now you've got a whole arsenal at your disposal, and the variety keeps things fresh and exciting. Plus, experimenting with different ship designs and weapon combinations is half the fun. It's both easier and more complex to manage. Easier if you stick to Nauvis and take your time, but much more complex once you get into full-on interplanetary logistics. It really does involve coordinating production chains across all planets, and that's where it gets properly wild. Having been through it all, I can say it's a brilliant evolution of the game, and I'm chuffed to finally share my experience with you. At one point, you'll get a congratulations message from the game, letting you know you've reached the interstellar space. But if you think that's the end, it's actually the start of a whole new adventure. I also want to take a moment to thank you all for your incredible support on my previous videos. This one's for you, and I hope you enjoy the game as much as I do. Okay guys, let's go back to basics. So that's my spaceship travelling from the solar system age to a shattered planet. I've got 3 of them running right now, and one's heading to a shattered planet as we speak. It's good progress, but considering the total space route is about 4 million kilometres, I reckon I've never actually gone beyond the Y letter, even after clocking over 4,000 hours. To avoid running out of ammo, which can end your journey because asteroids can wreck your space platform, I've set up indicators to keep track. If my ammo drops below 1,000, I make a stop to restock up to 3,000, which usually lets me travel another 10 to 15 kilometres into deep space. I found it really useful to colour code my indicators, making it easy to read at a glance. Being a visual person, it helps me predict and correct setups on the fly. Another thing to keep an eye on is your thruster fuel and oxidizer. Once you run out of those fluids, you'll come to a stop. The silver lining is that you'll still drift at around 10 kilometers per second back towards the main planet, so even if you mess up, you can eventually reload and get back on track. It honestly feels like the devs went through every moan we ever posted on Reddit about the rail system and actually fixed it. They've reworked all the rail commands and trip management, throwing in loads of new features for proper, intricate control. You'll be knee-deep in circuit conditions, monitoring item counts, and double-checking that every little request is being handled. It's absolutely vital for debugging and wrapping your head around how everything fits together, especially when you're trying to figure out what to load, what to bring, and where to dump it. You'll end up doing this non-stop while setting up your spaceship and getting it ready for launch. For example, to produce the final science pack, the Prometheum science pack, you need a right mix of rare ingredients. First up, biter eggs from Nauvis, which is a proper pain to deal with. You'll see why soon enough. Then, you need quantum processors imported all the way from a Aquilo. And finally, Prometheum chunks, which you can only get from asteroids out in deep space. So, you're basically on a cosmic scavenger hunt, gathering Prometheum from asteroids, combining it with biter eggs and quantum processors, and voila! You get your Prometheum science pack. And now, guys, let me show you what you'll absolutely love about this game. Each version has its own beauty, and in this one it's all about those mesmerizing visuals. Just look at those streams of unneeded elements being jettisoned from my ships. It's oddly beautiful and pretty exciting to watch. Plus, seeing those chunks of small asteroids get collected by the ship's collectors and turned into useful materials is just so satisfying. And when you're loaded up with those rich red Prometheum chunks, it looks absolutely astonishing. The developers really nailed these calming yet thrilling visuals, and it's one of the reasons we can't get enough of this game. What I haven't done yet, and honestly I'm not sure it's necessary, is go all the way to the shattered planet. Right now, I'm about 300,000 kilometers out from the solar system age, and my spaceship is practically full. So there's really no need to go any further. Heading back takes ages since I have to stop repeatedly to reload, so after all these hours of playing, I reckon it's best to set a limit. Something like 100,000 kilometers out, and then head back. This way, you save time collecting those quantum chips and can get back to Nauvis to produce the Prometheum science pack more efficiently. And just to give you a peek, this beauty you're looking at is one of the best ships I've developed. It's a proper prototype, capable of reaching a blazing 500 kilometers per second. You can zip between the main planets in under a minute, which is exactly what you need at this stage. You'll notice iron and copper getting jettisoned as it flies, a neat bit of visual feedback while it works. I'll be posting it on Factorio prints so you lot can try it out yourselves. I've actually built a few different ships, but this one's by far the fastest. If I were you, and just starting out, I'd definitely go for this type of setup. You can tweak it to fit your needs, but the key is having solid cargo capacity and plenty of speed. This ship can zip from Gleba, Fulgora, and Volcanis back to Nauvis in no time, which is exactly what you'll need. Usually, you'll only be transporting 2 or 3 key commodities each way. Nothing too mad. And every now and then, when things pile up or get a bit messy, you'll want to send in a mothership to haul the excess back to the main planet. Simple, really, once you get the hang of it. Okay, guys, let's head back to Nauvis, my main base. As you can see, my setup heavily relies on robots, which are absolutely crucial in the new game. Last time, I was all about the mods, but this time I've kept it simple, with just a few. Mainly, I've added some terraforming capabilities and a few mods for colour grading 1. The colour coding makes it easier to keep track of everything and find exactly where things are. I've also built a massive stack of science packs, from 20 to 90 million to be exact, all thanks to the logistics system. And because good storage is never enough, I'm constantly building new warehouses as needed. I use active storage provider chests to move items immediately after they're produced. Right now, the most underused facility is the Space Science Lab, which is sitting at about 10 million units. It's actually the easiest one to build outside the planet, almost like a training setup, so it's a breeze to manage. So in fact, I've got 6 different science parks right here on Nauvis, handling all the base science packs. The rest are produced off-world. Space science on the orbital platforms, metallurgic science on Volcanis. Nice and straightforward. Agricultural science on Gleba. A bit trickier. Electromagnetic science on Fulgora. Properly complex. Cryogenic science on Aquilo. Probably the easiest of the lot, though it does need loads of materials from other planets. And lastly, Prometheum science, which involves full-on deep space operations. In fact, as you can see, there are loads of new technologies you can only unlock by exploring and setting up these new science parks. For example, artillery, which you're probably used to having right off the bat, now requires you to first fly out. You won't get to clear out the riffraff from your base with artillery shells until you've put in the legwork. Those lovely local creatures won't know what hit them. So, you've got to leave the comfort of your cosy little base and venture out into the unknown. And here you can see my lovely science labs. I've kept the setup simple. You start by building the science packs in assembly machines, and then you scale up as needed. The system is super flexible, so if you need more production, you just add more assembly machines to meet the demand. One key insight I had was not to skimp on roboports. Each roboport can only handle a limited number of robots, and with around 40,000 robots in my network, you really need plenty of roboports to keep them all charged and running efficiently. The same principles apply to the other planets. They all have a similar setup. Right now, I'm showing you Fulgora, which probably consumed the most time. Fulgora's production setup is quite unique and led to huge imbalances at first. It took me months to balance everything out. What you're seeing here is footage from the early stages, recorded about a month ago, when I was dealing with storage issues daily. On Fulgora, space is limited, so you can't just expand the ground for your factories. You have to work with the islands and the electromagnetic fields, which is fun, but incredibly time-consuming. It was a real challenge, and I've since refined the design. But what you're seeing here is the early stage, before everything was properly optimized. And now, we're heading back to my ship, which ferries fish produced on Nauvis. Yes, you can produce fish. I transport it to Gleba, where it's used to make food for my bioproduction. Think of Gleba as an agricultural hub, only with plenty of hostile locals who aren't too thrilled about my presence. On Gleba, you can grow two types of trees, Umako and Jellystem. These are essential for producing various commodities. Another crucial resource is pentapod eggs, which you get by processing the shells of the local wildlife. These eggs are key for producing nutrients, which, in my case, I'm always running short on. That's why I haul in fish from Nauvis to process into nutrients for the supply chain. The tricky part is that everything's perishable. Bioflux goes off in 2 hours, nutrients in 5 minutes, and even the agricultural science pack has a shelf life of an hour. If you don't use them in time, they spoil. Still, not all is lost. You can reprocess the spoiled goods back into nutrients, so it's not a complete disaster. So folks, on Gleba, you basically feel like a gardening deity. You can cultivate almost everything you need right there, turning it into bioflux, which is then used to produce nutrients. It's a neat little closed-loop system where the quantity of trees determines your yield and ultimately your final product. Once you've got the bioflux, you cart it over to Nauvis and feed it to captive biter spawners. Yes, you can actually capture them. They produce biter eggs, which have their own spoilage timer. But here's the kicker. If you store them carelessly like I did, they can hatch right in the middle of your base, and suddenly you're surrounded. Honestly, it's the closest I've felt to being stuck in the wrong part of Peckham at midnight. Uninvited guests everywhere, and none of them particularly friendly. And here's where the real challenge kicks in: balance. If you churn out too many biter eggs, you've got a real problem on your hands because they start spawning non-stop. Imagine that. Every 5 minutes, a fresh batch pops up. If you're producing, say, 80,000 of them, that's a massive load on your defences. One option is to reprocess the surplus into nutrients. Nutrients have a longer shelf life, up to 2 hours, and then you can use them to produce fish. The fish are then shipped back to Gleba, and if they spoil, you just cycle them back into nutrients again. It's a bit like running your own high-tech compost heap, making sure everything is in a constant cycle of reuse. It's all about staying on top of the flow and ensuring nothing goes to waste. Essentially, You become the master of a finely tuned ecosystem. Does it look like pixel art to you? Because that's exactly the vibe I'm going for. You lay it out how you want, pick your colours, set the mood, and then just sit back and watch thousands of robots zip around, doing all the graft. It's honestly proper satisfying, like ASMR, but for engineers. And you know what? Playing Space Age is genuinely fascinating when it comes to building all those supply chains. Weaving everything together across planets feels like you're stitching a massive living circuit board. It's complex, but once it clicks, it's addictive. This control tower is one of the key elements in my setup. It's where I manage the entire flow of copper, iron, and other core resources. Honestly, I'd highly recommend setting one up early. It keeps everything organised, efficient, and gives you full control over your supply chains. All right, we're now heading to Aquilo, the last and farthest planet from Nauvis. It's a proper icy world with barely any sunlight, so solar power's out the window. This is where you build quantum processors, but they're entirely reliant on imports. Superconductors from Fulgora, carbon fibre from Gleba, and tungsten carbide from Volcanis. The only things you actually produce locally are lithium plates and fluoroketone, and fluoroketone is a crucial component for powering fusion reactors. The good news, you don't need to produce it constantly. Once you fill the tanks, it just runs. Almost like some mystical Tesla tech. Fusion becomes an absolute must once unlocked, and trust me, it'll change everything. And that's the beauty of Aquilo. Each fusion reactor you build there kicks out 250 megawatts for me, and if you stack them right, you can get massive efficiency bonuses, at least double. And all it takes to keep them running is just a fusion power cell, which by the way is also produced right here on Aquilo. It's surprisingly easy to set up once you get going. But here's the thing, you have to bring everything in. I mean everything, even the rocket parts just to get your base built. You import all the essentials and only export a few key components. One of those is the railgun turret. Aquilo is where I build all of mine. And honestly, I find it best to reprocess and upgrade them here too. Get them up to legendary quality before shipping them out. That way they're ready for action straight away. For example, take my Formula 1 ship. I call it City Runner. Right now, it's cruising at 462 kilometers per second with just 2 fusion reactors on board. It's seriously efficient. And then there's my docked unit, where I run the Space Science Park. That one doesn't even need thrusters. Just a few solar panels, and it sits there doing its thing, no fuss. You can really experiment with different setups. There are loads of ways to tweak things and find what works best for your style. I tried them all, but in the end, City Runner turned out to be the most balanced. It's got a great ratio between cargo capacity and speed. Honestly, you don't need more than 3 of them running between Nauvis and the outer planets. That's more than enough to keep everything flowing smoothly. And now, let's head to our final stop, Volcanis. It's a scorching hot planet, home to some rather majestic floating lava worms. This will probably be the first planet you explore beyond Nauvis, and for good reason. It's one of the easiest to set up on, perfect for producing tungsten and exporting a few essentials. That said, don't let the simplicity fool you. There are demolishers roaming the area, and they don't mess about. If you're planning to build a proper base here, make sure you've got Tesla turrets set up. They're the only thing that really works. Lasers and other turrets? Waste of time on this terrain. Just a word of advice. Move quietly and stay within the safe zone marked by the red lines. Step outside that, and you risk triggering one of those demolishers. Even a single one is enough to wipe out your entire base if you're not ready. I learned that the hard way, by the way. First time I landed on Volcanis, I got a bit overconfident, thought I'd stretch my base just a tiny bit past the red zone. Literally within 5 minutes, a medium demolisher showed up like it owned the place. One blast and half my setup went up in smoke. I had drones scrambling everywhere, no power, no defences. It was carnage. Since then, I don't even look past those red lines. Lesson learned. Guys, and finally I wanted to show you something really clever when it comes to keeping full control of your setup. I'll try to upload it for you too, so you can copy it and tweak it for your own builds. The key here is always knowing exactly what you're producing, how much you've got, what's running low, and what's piling up. Especially with spoilage in play, you can't afford to let things just sit around. It's all about balance. With this system, you can easily fine-tune things, add a bit more when needed, or cut back if there's too much. So for example, you can see the pink and yellow zones here, and these lovely little shells the locals kindly left behind for me. The pink areas, that's where you can actually grow things. You've got 2 types of trees and 2 types of zones, pink and yellow, both usable for planting. Now here's the trick. You can expand those plantable zones using overgrown soil, and to make that, you just combine local resources with those adorable little bites from Nauvis. It's a clever way to increase your tree growing area and really maximise your output. Once you've got all the soil properly placed, the whole area just comes alive. You'll end up with loads of extra resources, and that's a clear sign your global setup's working like it should. One thing to keep in mind, trees prefer growing in clusters. You can't grow them in the same spot. They naturally spread in different zones, and it's actually quite rare to see them growing near each other. And coming back to my insights, let me show you something I figured out about Volcanis and those demolishers. They actually move pretty slowly, so if you stay just outside the red zone, even a meter away, they'll usually just pass by without noticing you. But the moment you trigger them, it's on. I've got some decent artillery there, and even then, it can take 10 to 15 hits to bring one down. Their resistance to physical damage is massive, and since they're constantly moving, it's not like you can just hit and run. So, unless you're absolutely sure you've got enough shells and a Tesla turret ready, don't even bother setting up artillery cannons. You'll get wiped out in seconds. Finally, let me show you one more thing I really enjoy. Just look at how these metal patches are layered across the ground. The clean lines, the pure colours, the way each strip sits side by side like they've been carefully arranged. It honestly reminds me of the works of Piet Mondrian. It's got that same sense of structure and rhythm, almost minimalist, but deeply intentional. To me, it's more than just terrain. It's like the planet itself has painted a geometric composition, one line after another. Pure art. And just one last thing. I really want to thank the developers of the game. Honestly, it's really well done. I've had such a great time playing it, and I hope you guys will enjoy it just as much. If you've got any thoughts, comments, or even tips of your own, drop them below. Maybe we can help each other out and build something even better together.